Starting a timer. I need a countdown timer. Alright, 20 minutes. Okay, so if we go like this, save image as, and I already saved it, but I'll just repeat the step for you. So save, yeah, sure, whatever, show in folder, and then we're going to like open this with, you can't see it, I'm going to open it with paint.net because it seems that there's no browser that will just, use nearest neighbor filtering when you're zooming. Okay, so now that we have this in paint.net, what we can do is we can kind of like be able to zoom in on this without the blurring, right? So we can actually see what each pixel looks like rather than have that ugly, what is it, like anisotropic filtering or something like that? I don't know what exactly it's called. But okay, so now we can, make sure that what we thought we were seeing is what we were seeing, and yeah, that's exactly what we were seeing. So what I want to do is I want to go to image, and I'm just going to check out the properties here. I actually don't use MS, sorry, this is paint.net. I don't really use it much. I mean, I use it a lot, but it depends on what I've been busy doing. Also, the new versions of MS Paint just get shittier and shittier. It's like, at some point, your piece of software has hit like a pinnacle, and adding stuff to it just makes it shittier, right? Like, you can only make like a hammer, so you can only do so much to a hammer before it's reached perfection, or a screwdriver, right? Or any other tool. And for some reason, people like fail to see that with software, right? At some point, it's going to reach a pinnacle, and you got to move on and get another fucking project to work on, So, image, I mean, if we hit resize, we'll be able to see what size it is, but I really like something like file properties. Alright, well, let's not be, so yeah, 512 by 512. So that's 512 by 512. It's like, okay, well then why is it doing that every other? Okay, one possibility before I start reading the OpenGL spec is we've somehow swapped when we created the texture, we somehow swapped the initial values, and the isolated memory segment that I'm working with is not actually 512 by 512. Well, the canvas right now is 512 by 512, but maybe the image I loaded for whatever reason is, say, right, we had that other size of 1024 by 1024. Maybe we screwed that up, and in my code, I'm actually creating a 1024 by 1024 canvas for this isomem right here. And if that were the case, you would definitely see your sampler skipping over large chunks of texels. And in fact, well, the thing is it wouldn't quite be every other, right? Because 512, right? You would expect that to happen for like something that was. Oh wait, do we use 1024 instead of? I'm gonna look for the value 1024. Okay, so we do have 1024 here in the source code, and right? Isn't that just twice of? Is this comment wrong? Do I not know how to math? I think I don't know how to math. Yeah, because that would be 512 times 2 would be 1024, right? And I want like 2048, I think. Yeah, 512 times 4 is 2048, not 1024. So that's fucked up. That's totally wrong. Because the idea is we want to be able to, should be able to fit 16 via Okay, so this is wrong. So this is, we can change this comment for now. Right. So yeah, that's totally wrong. But that also would explain, right? Since this is double, that would explain skipping over every other pixel. So I would say this is a contender for what's going on. And then if this is really true, yeah, but this says the main memory. So the ISO memory, the main memory, and this is our. So what we're thinking here is that I am somehow whatever sampler is associated with this is the wrong. Oh, you know what? It's because we didn't set. I believe to sample a texture, you got to set like the sampler, a sampler uniform. Like the sampler is in the shader, but the uniform value was never manually set. And so what it would happen. But this would default to the second slot though. So this would be the first one. Or maybe not, because okay, this is here, but I bet in the code, I bet this sampler might be like the second sampler in the code or something in the shader code, and that could definitely cause. So I'm gonna guess maybe the uniforms. Okay, yeah. So here we have. In our uniforms, we have 3 uniforms here, and I'm going to guess that their positions are default by the order that they're declared in the code. So the location or the handle for this uniform is probably 0, and then the location or handle for this uniform is probably 1, and the location or handle for this uniform is probably like 2, right? And since this uniform has a value of 1, then the first texture is texture slot 0, the second texture slot is texture 1. So this sampler that I think is ISO memory is actually sampling from the whatever the second texture defined is, because 0, 1, right? So 0 and 1. So let's look at our, if we look at our code here, not that. So this is 0, and this is 1. Yeah, so we have swapped up because we never configured our samplers, we're actually using this sampler. And that's causing that's causing the skipping of the pixels when we are sampling, because we think our sampler is sampling this texture, but it's actually sampling this texture. So we should probably look to see where these textures are uploaded. It should be like text image 2D somewhere in the code. So down here, we should have should be called like way down here. Okay, so we populate, and then we're gonna push it up. And so I was really focusing on, like yesterday, I don't know if I recorded. I don't think I recorded it because I was just doing so much troubleshooting. I was really focusing on making sure that these were correct, and then making sure that this was, and then making sure this was correct, like making sure the format was correct. and that we were sampling correctly. And I'm like, I'm pretty damn sure that's all correct. I referenced old code that I've written this kind of code twice before, so I referenced those code bases, and I'm like, I don't see any difference. What the fuck am I doing wrong? So yeah, I'm pretty sure that's right. But if we look at this, we don't have a uniform for the texture samplers anywhere. Like, we have it in the shader, but we don't have it anywhere else. So we have this uni U32 for has memory, right? So this we do set. So so I use this little getter setter class to set the uniform value of hasmem to 1 into the shader, but there's nothing for the sampler. So to fix that, we should probably well, let's look at what kind of data we have for the everything that we want to have like linked together to define a texture. So I commented this out, but right, this is the basic structure of this. Is right, we got the texture handle, and the texture slot. So what we really need to do is be able to set the sampler value, and to make it easier, we could have like a name property or something. I don't know. Well, let's do that. So, do we want to call it texture name or pixel name? I don't know. Well, first of all, I'm gonna check in my notes, see if I've already defined anything for like the pixel name. So we have pixel name. Do we have like texture name? No, we don't. So text. Okay, so the idea is I want to make sure I don't have two variables that have the same meaning. So I have this kind of thing where I kind of use pixels sometimes, like other times sometimes I use tex for texture, and sometimes I use pix for pixels, and those are kind of synonymous, so that's already kind of a mistake. But we don't want to make the problem even worse. So we want to make sure that if we are using a variable called pix name or pixel name, that we don't want to have another thing called texture name, right? And also text name could be, we could use that for text name in some other code. Use for pixels name. Don't use which. Okay, we'll just make some other stuff here. So I can still allow the use of a variable called tex underscore nam for, but not if I'm going to use it for pixel name. But if this variable meant something like text block name, then that would be allowable. It's just that I don't want two variables that mean the same thing. So I don't want a texture name variable and a pixels name variable, because those are the same concept. Okay, so now that we've established that in the code, in our notes, we can go back here and for these structs in our code, so we have, okay, these were called unipix, so we did actually create containers like that. So the handle, the slot, the array, the width, so we need like another variable called and this will be for a pixel name, pixels name, and then we can still do like a AKA and say that, you know, but the idea is that we can allow this in the comments, but we never want to allow this as actual variable. 2D uniform data for texture sampling. Oh yeah, we even have this in the notes. So we want a pixel name, and then do we want a pixel location? And I don't think we really need that, because I believe all it has to do is the well, we'll see. But we need to grab the uniform, and we're going to set the uniform's value to whatever the texture slot value is. So do we really need to? We're only going to set that once. So is it necessary to really cache the value for the sampler? I don't know. But we should just get it working first, and then we can decide what other variables are absolutely necessary here. I'm thinking that to grab, it's not like the other uniforms where we're going to be like getting and setting them a lot and changing them. It's like we're just going to set the sampler value once to a certain texture, right? Because one sampler, I'm always going to have a specific sampler for a specific texture. You don't have to do it that way, right? You could have one sampler and then just use a uniform to change what texture that samples from. But for me, that I don't like that strategy of organization. It doesn't seem very, I don't know, I feel like it'd be easy to screw things up if I did that. So to keep it simple, if it's a texture sampler, it always samples from the same texture. So I have a dedicated sampler. I have a dedicated sampler for every texture. But yeah, so now we just gotta add some code where we are going to wire up the uniform value for the samplers. So that will be the next thing, and also like the texture name or the pixels name on the CPU side and on the GPU side, we just keep them the same name, right? We don't need two different names in our code running around. That would just make it harder to figure things out. So the pixel name for this, for one of these, will be ISO name, so it'll be ISO like that, and the other one will be the master memory name, name, the master memory, sorry, my bad, it would be, one's gonna be this, master memory, and then one's gonna be like this, right? There's two different names. So we're gonna do that next. Shouldn't be too hard. We just gotta, I believe we commented out, we had like getters and setters for that, but we commented it out, right? Because it was like, we kind of have the idea of how it works, but we haven't really, well, actually, this was the old conceptualization before we had something to actually work with. So in our GPU variable container, we have the pixget and pixput, but this was, these were for like, the idea here was to have like texture uploads and downloads, I guess, if we want to call it a download. So to and from GPU memory or VRAM. So well, actually, the way this is currently written, it could, the pixput and pixput could work for getting the uniform values. I think I might want to just scrap these functions and think about, because it's not completely analogous, because really we want like to we want to like put could be used for putting the pixels, getting the pixels. Okay, yeah, we could keep it like that, but we need something else for, well, actually, when we do the put, every time we do the put, it could not only wire up the uniform for the sampler, but it could also push the texture. So we could have that compound behavior because of the tight coupling between the texture sampler and the texture. That would make sense. Because what I don't really want is, I would like to, it would be nice if we could just keep these functions and keep this analogous behavior, right? Because the other thing we could do is we could say pixel upload, pixel download, and then a third thing called like pixel uniform sync or whatever. And now that's getting out of hand. And now we've kind of fractured our analogy. So yeah, let's do a thing where the pixel put and pixel get have logic for, it does two things. Both of them do two things. The pixel put is going to upload the texture and set the uniform for the sampler, and the pixel get is going to just download all of the values from the texture back onto the CPU side. I think that will be alright. And then will be the beginnings of being able to have a get put pixel and put pixel like command for a canvas adapter. So I'll be back, and then we'll do that. I guess I'll keep on recording, and then maybe I won't have to like read all of this. I think maybe I've kind of figured it out, and I can put off reading through all of this until I get stuck again, right? But the idea is like whenever you get stuck, then picking around for the problem is probably not what you want to do, and you want to like front load everything, right? Because you don't know what you don't know, right? So if you can't figure out the problem by looking for the solution on like Stack Overflow, it's because you probably don't even know what to look for, and so you can't find the answer because you don't even know what to look for. So you better just read a whole bunch of stuff. So this will kind of help you know what you don't know, or you'll have known what you didn't know. I don't know, but you get the idea, right? I hope, right? Um, okay, yeah, I'm gonna stop recording and then we'll get back to it.